Hello, welcome. Pull up a chair, grab your favorite drink, coffee, tea, water, and join us for a conversation that comes from my heart to yours. Today we have Angel Mom Gina Taylor from South Carolina. So, welcome, Gina.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So, Gina's here and she's going to talk to us about her experience as an angel mom because she lost her only child, Timothy. So, can you tell us a little bit about Timothy? Why don't you share something that brings you joy or a happy memory when you think about him?
Well, Timothy was the biggest prankster. April Fool's was like his favorite day of the year. He would take my phone and he would replace my Dave Matthews Band background on my phone and change it to a picture of a man's private parts, something he just found on the internet. And it would make me so mad because I didn't know how to change it back. And he would leave it all day long. So everywhere I went, if somebody saw my phone, that's what they saw. And it just tickled him to death to do stuff like that. Like even as a child, he would go to be at my mom's house, who lives next door, and then just like fall out on the floor, like play dead. And my mother would scream, oh no, whatever, what's wrong? And then he would lay there and watch her go crazy and then pop up, got you, Mimo. And she fell for it time after time after time after time. And then whenever I would ask him where he was going, if he was leaving the house, he always said, out the wazoo. And that meant none of my business. He wasn't gonna tell me. But I miss his laugh, I miss his jokes, I miss his pranks. He was really funny.
What a character, especially on your phone.
Yep. It was.
So, I bet you don't miss the pictures that he left on your phone. just
No,
the
I do not. I
just
do
the
not.
prank
But
itself.
and it took me forever to figure out how to change that myself.
And that's why he did it.
I know. And he knew how much I loved my Dave Matthews background. And the first time he did it, I didn't know it could be fixed. So I was really freaking out and he just loved it.
Oh, that's so funny. That's funny. And things like that, it's it makes you laugh and smile to remember that kind of stuff. But then on the other hand, you're sad because you miss it. So, and that's the truth of grief. It's so complex.
Yes.
He can't prank you like that anymore, but getting signs, stuff like that, you never know. The humor that they still leave behind and the energy.
Well, I've been uh, I applied for disability when he died. Well, a year after he died. And the very day that I got approved, the same day I got approved, I got a credit card in the mail with his name on it.
Ah,
That's
that
him.
that you'll never be able to use. That's funny.
That's right. That's right. And I don't get signs like a lot of moms do. That I wish I did. I don't. I just get pranks like that. And I know it's him. He's been gone almost 3 years, and I got a credit card in his name in the mail.
Well, that's the thing. It comes in different forms. Knowing that, you relate that right away to him being a prankster. That's a sign for you.
And one day not long ago, I got a letter addressed to him from a what's the religion that they knock on your door?
Jehovah Witness?
Yeah, I got a letter addressed to Timothy from a Jehovah's Witness. And then when of course I opened it and it was handwritten. So that's what made me open it. And the guy was like, I sure enjoyed our conversation last week. So I wanted to follow up with you about because Timothy was not religious at all. He was spiritual, but not religious. Okay. And so I don't know how that letter came to me in the mail, but I laughed all day long that
And that's a joy. It's that you find a way to laugh in the after, because as we think of it, um, with losing our kids, the life is before that date and the life is the after that date. So what is Timothy's forever age?
26.
26. So he died young. You want to share a picture of Timothy so we can see?
This is Timothy. This was his birthday was in April, so this is the year that he died. We went out to eat at his favorite restaurant, which is a Japanese steakhouse, Kyoto. And this is a picture from that day in April 29th, and then he passed the following September.
Beautiful, beautiful picture. Thank you for sharing Timothy with us. So, like you were saying, it's coming up on 3 years since you've lost him. And with losing your only child, you have no other children for support. You're a single mom. You've been a single mom your whole life.
Yep.
How, before we get to that, we'll touch briefly for other viewers to see. Did Timothy suffer from a substance use disorder?
Yes. Timothy was attacked when he was in 10th grade. He was 15. A boy beat him up in the parking lot of the high school with brass knuckles. And he had 7 fractures on his nose and 3 on his orbital bone. And so he had to have reconstructive surgery on his face. And this was '08, so we didn't know. I didn't know, and I guess doctors didn't either, the dangers. So he was given 120 Vicodin a month, and this lasted for 9 months. And then he had really severe panic attacks because in the parking lot, a lot of people crowded around the fight, and he just lay there on the ground and took it. There's not much you can do, with brass knuckles. So he started having severe panic attacks. So the doctor gave him 90 Xanax a month. And his 15-year-old brain got addicted almost immediately. And he suffered 9 years and 7 rehabs. And 2 of the rehabs were year-long programs. And he finally kicked it and said it was for good on April the 1st, April Fool's Day of 2018. Well, he was sober for 2.5 years before he died.
Yeah, and that's hard because when they're in that struggle that long, there's always hope. You know, you always believe in the promise of hope that they'll recover. You do, right?
I had I gave I tried everything. I still have a deadbolt on my bedroom door. I slept with my wallet and my keys under my pillow just so he could stay here in this house. I tried everything, and no matter what I did, it seemed like he could get around it. I remember him, I was sound asleep and I felt a presence over me, and he was digging under my pillow to get my wallet. And I still don't, to this day, I don't know how he got into my bedroom. It was a deadbolt and it was locked. And I literally, I put them back up. I literally walked around with a lanyard around my neck with the keys to my house and to my bedroom.
And you did, like so many parents do, you did anything and everything you could do to get your child help. So when somebody says, what would you have done differently? There's nothing you could have done differently
No,
because
I
you
took his
did
bedroom door off I took his bedroom
right.
door off.
You did a lot. You did. And that's the hard part of where we are in our grief journeys. When we go through the what ifs and the if only we did that, you did everything you could with what you had, and it still happens.
I
So
feel
then
like I feel like there should be a group. Um, there's Al-Anon, there's AA, NA. There's no group for mothers that have children that are addicts, because Al-Anon teaches you to live and let them do. But when you are responsible for a 15-year-old to go to school or you'll go to jail, You can't follow the rules of Al-Anon and just let him go and let him do. You have to make sure he's at school every day, or else
Right.
you get in trouble.
And well,
And there was no support.
luckily now there is. There are groups out there, for parents that still have a child suffering from substance use disorder. I've seen the groups really expand on Facebook than when I started looking 3.5 years ago. And a lot of moms that have lost a child to overdose or fentanyl poisoning still have another child suffering.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother dynamic right there. And they're looking for support twofold. So, but there
There
are
was,
groups out there.
I
But
looked
there,
high and low for help and I couldn't find
right,
any. I wanted just some tips, like
right.
where are some places he might hide drugs that I haven't thought of. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah,
crazy things
yeah.
like that.
And you did a lot. You did a lot for Timothy. So don't sell yourself short on that one. You did. And I'm really, really sorry for your loss. So you've been on your grief journey. It's coming up on 3 years. Let's talk about how grief has affected your health.
Um, I had no idea grief could affect you physically. I had no idea. The first the first thing was my my beautician, we were just talking about. She said, Gina, if your hair is falling out, you're not gonna have any hair left. What's going on? And I said, I don't know. And I always just looked like dark circles under my eyes. And um, for 6 months we didn't know what happened to Timothy, and that was the worst part. And that's when I lost the most hair, is when before the people were arrested, and it was just coming out in clumps. But other than that, I have a back injury from a wreck, and I've always had back issues, but it was like exacerbated. Like it was 10 times worse than it's ever been since my wreck. Um, my whole body would just ache, sore. It was like I had run a marathon and I hadn't done anything but just lay in the bed.
Hmm.
Um, and I talked to my doctor, and that's when they suggested that I start therapy and to try to help with some of the symptoms, because she said I was going to wind up with a heart attack. My blood pressure was 200 over 100 just about daily, and I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't work. All I did was, and I still do this today. I still picture him dead in the backseat of that car. But with therapy, it's I'm not gonna say I've come to accept it, because there's no even way to accept it. It doesn't. It's not putting me in the early grave anymore the way that it was before I
So
started getting help.
it's you have found therapy beneficial.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
And
see a
it,
psychiatrist monthly and a
mhm.
therapist weekly, but I've got to find a new therapist. My therapist, it was the craziest thing. She's from New York. She went to New York to have some kind of like outpatient surgery, and she got some kind of crazy infection, and she was in the hospital for 3 months. And like my therapist just disappeared off the planet. Nobody knew where she was. Her landlord didn't know where she was. I was freaking out. I didn't find out for 3 months what had happened to her, and she still hasn't come back to work. And now she's saying that she might not. So, and that's like right now I'm dealing with having to start all over with a new therapist, and that's
and
really
that's
freaking me out.
right. And you know what? I hear what you're saying because that's really hard. When you meet with a therapist and then you establish a relationship, you when you go in, you're starting from ground zero, and then you're building, 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 and you've shared so much of yourself that when that's taken away, it's soul crushing. And the thought of, oh my God, I got to start all over again. Because I know personally, when I've been there and I've had to see different therapists over the years, I hate it. I hate starting from the beginning because I'm like, here I go again. But the hardest part is always walking through the door or just saying hello, whether it's virtual. That's always the hardest part. But when you have a relationship and you establish a relationship, it's a good thing. It really is a good thing, but it's really hard starting from the bottom. But if that's where you got to start, there's only one way to go, and that's up.
That's right. I miss her. I miss her
Yeah.
like a family member. I mean, I felt like when the man was, when I got the phone call that said we needed to go to court the next day, that the man had made a deal to accept a 10-year guilty plea for manslaughter. I had a mental breakdown, and it wasn't about the fact that it was just 10 years or versus more. It was just the fact that somebody was going to jail for
Yeah.
Timothy's death, and I couldn't handle it. She came to my house. She came to my house and calmed me down. Like I had the whole panic attack. I couldn't breathe. And I called her, and this is how a good relationship we had. She answered the phone and she drove to my house and calmed me down.
Yeah. You had, we won't go into it because it might be a trigger for people, but we'll just say the circumstances surrounding Timothy's death are tragic. Very, very tragic. And on the flip side, he did get justice. So many don't. He did get justice, but it doesn't bring him back. It just adds a new level to your grief.
I do want to say for moms that will never, they know they'll never see justice. I hate that for them, but I also want them to know that it's not what you think it's going to be. It's not. You're not missing out on this big wonderful thing, because it's not. Even uh I was on cloud nine for about 3 days, just glorious. Thank you, you know. And then it hits you. Well, he's still not coming back, and nothing's changed. It didn't give me the satisfaction that I thought that it would, and I'm I'm I feel bad for mothers that won't ever see any justice, but I just want them to know that it's not all it's cracked up to be. Is all.
Well, and that's good insight because I know when I see other moms that say that are seeking justice, and it's like they're going through the whole process in the court system and sentencing,
And it's
the
brutal. It's brutal.
the that's it, the brutality that it does on your soul and your being, where you're trying to get justice for your child. It doesn't lessen because they caught somebody.
It doesn't.
So the struggle's still there, and I nobody was ever arrested in Ryan's death, and nobody ever will be. And it's really hard. The only, hmm, let me think how I want to say this. I don't like saying I accept it but what I'm trying to say is they know who it was who sold him the fentanyl. They pulled him over with fentanyl in his car and his 5-year-old child in the car, but nothing was ever done. And because Ryan passed in a different state that I live in, I didn't have the energy to pursue it. I realized I had to put my energy into taking care of myself. I didn't have the energy to pursue it. And when I hear like what you're saying that, and I've known you now for over a year, it takes a toll. It takes a big toll. And the back and forth and other people I know going through the court system. So for you to say it doesn't give the the peace, maybe that's it, like the peace
Mm-hmm.
that you think it does.
It doesn't.
Yeah, it's hard. I can't imagine because I'm not in your shoes. So what has been the hardest thing you've had to deal with since losing Timothy?
Dealing with his baby's mamas.
So Timothy left behind a beautiful son and daughter, and I'm sure they are the lights of your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And they have two different mothers.
Mhm.
One used to live about an hour and a half away, and I had Timothy's rights as a father with him since he was born. And when Timothy died, she sued me to take away my rights because grandparents don't really have rights in South Carolina. So it got down to just 1 weekend a month where I've been getting him every other Thursday to Sunday since he was 2 months old. And then she relapsed and she went to rehab for 9 months in Florida. And I got Eli every other weekend again. And then as soon as she got out of rehab, she took away all those visits again. Her mom and I were getting along great. And so I found out that she overdosed twice. She had sex in front of Eli with a drug dealer. She was shooting up heroin
So,
in front of Eli. And
so
I'm suing her.
yeah. And that's a whole nother layer on top of your grief.
Oh, God, it's awful.
Yeah. And because how old were his children when Timothy passed? They were young.
3 and 5.
Yeah, they were young. So you have a responsibility as the grandmother, and like a personal responsibility to make sure they always know their dad. Like you as the grandmother, that was your son. That like you let them know about their dad, I'm sure.
I do. I show them videos. Um, I have Alexa and I can play his voice on Alexa. Like I can replay, and Alexa you can hear Timothy saying, "Hey Alexa, play Baby Shark," and Jade will get all excited because she remembers him playing Baby Shark. Baby Shark. No, Alexa, stop. For all you moms, if your child lived with you and you have an Alexa in your house, you can go to the app and you can look up past anything that anybody's ever said to it. It's recorded and you can listen to it. So I get to hear Timothy's voice that way. It's really cool.
that,
And
that's
I
a
found out
great
about it from
tip.
a grief group.
That's a great tip. And you're right, like in different grief groups, there are tips out there. There's all different kinds of support out there. Um, and with a group, I don't think I've seen a Facebook group for moms who have lost their only child
No,
to this disease.
I haven't either.
But I do know many moms that have lost their only child. So it's it's hard because the future is that you believed for your child that they were going to do, it's now taken from you.
Everything is taken from me. He was my whole life. Ever since he was born, my whole life revolved around him. I never dated, much to his dismay, because he wanted me to get a life. He would tell me, "Get a life, mom. Stay out of mine." But I, I've just believed in raising a man. I wanted to put all my energy in raising him, and I never wanted a man to tell him what to do. So he never even woke up in a house with a man in his house, like never. He, I just that's how I was raised. My parents were married, of course, but you know, you just don't let men come and go out of a child's life. You just don't do that. And I never did that. So my whole life revolved around him, and that's the hardest part of this whole thing is like, well, my whole life has just been wasted. My whole life is a waste because he's gone, and I lived my whole life for him, and he's left me. How can he do that to me? I get so mad sometimes. And I
Yeah.
never wanted more children. I only ever wanted just one child. And a lot of people ask me now that he's gone, do I regret not having more children? And I don't, for the simple reason that you said a while ago. I would have another child with abuse, with a addiction, and I couldn't go through that again. So I'm
And
glad in
I
a
think
way.
somebody asking that too, when people ask that, I see that. I don't like that. Oh, do you regret not having another child? Or
Oh,
that's
you
an
wouldn't believe
awful
the things I get
question.
asked.
I know. So I was going to ask you, like, what's the worst thing you've heard? And that's one of the worst things you've heard is, do you regret not having another child? And how we hear it as a grieving parent is, We don't regret having our child that passed. We don't regret that. We love them. They weren't born addicted. They
Right.
weren't born with this they weren't born with this disease. And we don't regret having our children. So when people ask that, yeah, I hate that. So
The
let's
worst thing
say,
I hate, the one I hate, besides that, the one I hate the worst is um, God needed him more. Oh my God. Please don't say that to a grieving parent. Well, I want to say, well, um, I'll tell you what, why don't you let him have one of yours and see how that feels? Because you just think it's okay for me to give mine to God, but you get to keep yours and he's in a better place. Oh my God, please, please don't say that to a mom. He's in a better place. A better place is here with me, with his kids.
that's right, agreed, 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 right. The better place is here with us. And I found that when people say, oh, with God, my way of rationalizing it now that's gentle is I don't say God took them, I say God received them. Because when I say like God took them, it's kind of that's hard on my heart. So to make it gentle to myself, I just say God received them. When Ryan was ready, God received him. So you're I was going to ask you
Or
on
here's the
advice.
my next worst is, do you know if he's in heaven? Was he a good Christian boy?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm lucky I'm not in jail.
yeah, I hear you. Somebody, believe it or not, just last week said, um, "Did my son believe in God?" Oh wait, did your son accept God before he passed?
Same thing.
And I'm just like thinking, you're judging my son you did not know. And whether he did or didn't, I know my kid's in heaven. Whether he did or didn't, I know he's up there.
That's
And
right.
it's just, that's when your mouth is open and it just, and then you're thinking, I can't believe somebody said this. And it's like, you walk away because you can't help,
And you can't slap them.
you can't. I know you want to, Gina. You know I want to, but we can't. But we can educate them. We can educate them so they know better the next time. When you know better, you do better. So as we wrap up, um, we have heard wonderful advice from you on what not to say to a grieving parent. So let's end with a positive thought. Do you have a positive thought or advice that you'd like to share?
Well, my best advice to somebody new in the grief journey would be to get. I waited a year before I saw a therapist. I wish I hadn't. I feel like the whole first year I was in shock. I didn't even believe that it happened. I think I literally was just going through the motions. I didn't comprehend what was happening. My biggest advice, most importantly, besides don't be afraid to ask for help, see a therapist. It really does help me, but to take it easy on yourself. Don't blame yourself. Don't cry at night because it's all your fault, because I did that. And I really think I was on the verge of a heart attack towards the before I started getting help and realizing that I can't live that way, thinking that this is all my fault. Um, my best advice is just take it easy on yourself. If drinking an alcohol drink or six makes you feel better, not thinking about it, do it. If uh, just being by yourself in your room watching a good movie makes you feel better, whatever it is that makes you feel better, just do it, because it's
And
it's
that's great.
it's bad enough what you're going
Right,
through. Just take care of yourself,
right.
because
And
I didn't
thank you
do
for
that.
that. Thank you for that. And you like just like you finished with, it's not easy to do that. And the first year is so raw, so numb. when other people, the others, told me to get help in the beginning, it got me really mad. I was pissed off. It's like, oh my God,
Who are you to tell me?
who are you to tell me? But what I did is one day I was having a calm day and I wrote the name down of 3 therapists. And I kind of, what I call it is I put things in my back pocket until I need it. That way, when you're there. So when I was having a bad day after that, I had the number ready. And that's when I was ready to call. It was there. The pressure wasn't on me hearing it from anybody else. I knew I wanted to get help. I didn't know when I was ready or how, but I had the information there. So when I had that bad day and I was ready to make the call, it was right there. And the first person on my list is who I hooked up with, and she's been phenomenal.
It's very important to I feel like I loved my therapist. I loved her. First anything good would happen, she's the first person I wanted to call, and I missed that relationship. And like I said, I'm gonna have to find a new one because I missed. I went for a year and a half every week, so I miss it.
And you'll find somebody, and that's the thing. There's people out there, so ask. So thank you for your advice. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions, comments, you can post it in the comments. I'll have contact information for Gina if she has something. Maybe she'll share her email, but reach out.
Sure.
That's why we're here. Reach out.
I'll be
So
glad to answer any questions.
thank you, Gina. And you can find the From Project on Facebook. It's a public page, or you can send an email to thefromproject@gmail.com. Remember, you're not alone. I'm sending you love, hugs, support, and compassion from my heart to yours. I am forever Ryan's mom. Am I Ryan?
Hey,
There he
Ryan.
is.
I
So
have to think that Timothy and Ryan would be such good friends.
they do, and they have a lot of similar things, especially with the pranks. So that ends our conversation for today, and we will catch you on the next episode. So have
Thank
a
you for
great
having
day
me.
and know that you are loved. Love you.
Love you.